Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these Godzilla x Kong, the new Empire releases, and this time we have the Kong vs. Skar King 4-piece diorama set. I believe these figures are exclusive to Walmart, if I recall correctly. It does say exclusive figures, but it doesn't actually say like Walmart exclusive, but I'd imagine that's where they're exclusive to. You can see the front of the packaging does have the Skar King as well as Kong right there. And then if we turn it around, actually if you look at the side, you have kind of like a little preview of the set itself, and then over here on the side again we also have Godzilla and Kong, and then here on the back basically again a little preview of what is contained within, which looks to be pretty fun. Definitely a nice looking set overall. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So we have this fun stuff which we'll take a look at here in a little bit. I don't think we need a closer look really at that, and there it goes, it fell down. We've also got our Skar King as well as our Kong, and our Skar King is all kinds of messed up. Let's go ahead and get him in some form of a better position to stand here, potentially. There we go. And we also have a HEAV, of course, because that is included in the set as well. And I will say that one thing about this set that I am happy about is the fact that these are the smaller 6-inch versions of the figures, because these, in my opinion, are probably the superior figures in this line overall, because the articulation is so nice, the detailing looks really nice as well. So in my opinion, these are probably my favorite figures to come from the line so far, and they also just generally have a nice, in my opinion, a little bit of a higher quality feel than a lot of the other figures in the line. So let's go ahead, jump to a closer look, and we'll check them all out from there. So starting with our Skar King, you can see the Skar King is pretty cool looking, honestly. If you happen to have the 6-inch version of the Skar King, though, you'll already know what the figure looks like for the most part, because sculpt-wise, I believe it's the same as that figure. Now, I don't have the regular mainline 6-inch version of the Skar King yet, because I haven't seen it in store yet, so I'm waiting to find it at some point, but I do have the Battle Roar version, or at least my son does, so I've taken a look at that one, and I know this one's obviously quite different, and the fact that this one is the same similar size as the Kong down below, which is the same 6-inch figure that we have in the main line, obviously means that this would probably be the same 6-inch figure that is in the main line for the Skar King. The only difference is that we have a little bit of different coloration for this. Now you can see that we've got, of course, the paintwork here for the face that sports that Skar King look. You've got the reddish tones running up the center of the head here. You've got some white on the sides, and you've also got the white here on the snout. You can see that the nostrils are kind of elaborated. It looks like we may have a darker tone in there to sort of elaborate those nostrils, and we can also see the teeth are painted. Unfortunately, we don't have any kind of jaw articulation for either this or Kong, but it does look okay. You can see that we have a darker tone that's been airbrushed here over the face. Same deal on this side, and that's one of the main differences, I think, for this figure compared to the mainline version of the Skar King. And you can see that that darker tone kind of runs down here along the, basically from like the face down toward the shoulder there, down toward the arm, and then it kind of tapers off as we reach into the elbow. Then we have a lighter tone, again a white, and we have like red stripes moving down. Also, don't mind the band-aid, that is very poorly applied to my finger. As I was opening this, I stabbed myself with the razor knife because I am such a clumsy human being, so I just very quickly threw a band-aid on so I don't bleed all over the place while we do this. But you can see again that the arm looks pretty good. The only thing about these figures that I'm not a huge fan of is the skin texture often looks pretty muted, and you can see yet again for the Skar King here, when it comes to the skin texture, it looks okay, but at the same time definitely has a bit of a muted look. I don't know if that's because this coloration is kind of like such a bright white and it sort of shines the detail away, so I can't really see it as nicely as I'd like to, but in comparison to the fur detail, it definitely looks like it has kind of a muted look. But you can see the fur does look quite nice as you move through the figure, which is a plus. And then we also have this, I don't know what you would call it, this kind of belt-like thing that he wears over his shoulder, which is obviously a large section of vertebrae. And we also have a jawbone here. That in this one is actually, I believe, removable. Yeah, you could probably get that off, which is cool because I think on the Battle Roar version, I don't think it was removable. So it would be pretty neat to be able to take that off. I do actually like that because you can see it's completely, loose. Actually, let's just try to get it off. There we go. So it's off now. And now we can see our Skar King without that on. And honestly, I like it better without that on. But let's go ahead and move the head back. We do have some nice articulation in the neck. That's actually super, super smooth. Only swivels, it doesn't go forward and back or anything, but it is really quite nice. And then again, as far as the articulation goes, when we move to the arm, we can come out away from the body. We can also go forward and back, completely swivel around if we choose to. We have very smooth elbow articulation as well, like super, super smooth. It can also swivel and swivel wrist articulation. So again, that's one of the reasons why I think I like these figures a lot more than a lot of the others, because there's just so much more articulation on these and it works way better. Same deal as we move down here to the midsection, you can see we've got some articulation here, which is actually kind of a little loose, but it seems to stay in place. It's just like it takes little to no effort to move it, which worries me that maybe over time it might become a little bit too loose, but it seems like it's okay right now. Of course, you're going to see the same thing for the opposing arm over here as you move down through the course of the arm. It looks just like the first arm did. Moving down here into the chest, I think the skin texture actually looks okay. And here is one of those areas where you can see, because it isn't such a bright tone of color, we can kind of get a better look at the texturing to the skin. And here it looks pretty decent, I will say that. It doesn't look bad at all. You can very much so see that the Skar King is quite muscular. We have the muscle definition moving down from the pecs all the way through the abs, and then as you move down, you can see again that we return to the fur, and just like with the upper part of the Skar King, you can see there's more variation of color. There actually is the same thing here for the, chest, for the skin textured areas. You can see some of that darker brown has been airbrushed through a few areas. You've got like that pinkish tone, like a variation of like a pinkish red running through there. You also have a little bit more of that white. And as you move down, you see more of those darker tones again return back for the figure. Same thing as you lead down into the legs of this version of the Skar King. And again, it's my first time actually getting to check out this version of the Skar King and look at the articulation, which is way better than the Battle Roar version. You can see we can move the leg forward and back. I don't think, oh, actually it does swivel. Look at that. So that's really nice articulation. Also in the knee, again, forward and back, you're definitely not going to swivel the knee around. No ankle articulation, though. But again, sculpt-wise, it looks great as you move down through the course of the figure. The feet then return to a white coloration. We don't have any painted nails or anything for the Skar King, but this is probably the best-looking version that I've seen through this entire line when it comes to the Skar King. It's definitely got quite a bit of paintwork to it, and also super, super smooth articulation, which is really nice. That is honestly a great version of Skar King. And then we've got Kong. Now, the Kong is definitely the same figure that we had in the main line. There's no differences outside of the coloration. Now, the coloration is pretty interesting because we do have our classic Kong colors, again, with the very dark kind of grays and kind of looks like browns and stuff that we have applied, but we also have all sorts of really strange flashy coloration here as we move down, as we have yellows, oranges, and reds that are just pretty much all over the place. They also have a strong satin shine to them, which is interesting, and you can see it moves down through the course of the chest. It also runs down through the arms right here, all the way down into the hands. You see the same thing for this arm over here, even the arm that has that kind of glove here. You can see also sports that reddish and orangish and yellowish coloration. And you see they continue to run down through the legs, again down here into the thighs, kind of tapering off around the knee area. Outside of that, coloration-wise, there's not a whole lot going on that would probably differentiate this one from the original release. You can see that the toes are slightly different when it comes to the coloration compared to the areas that do include the fur. And same deal up here in the face. You can see, again, the dark tones that are slightly different compared to the areas of the fur. The inside of the mouth is sculpted pretty okay, and you can see, again, that the paintwork looks fairly decent for that area. Same deal here for the back again, just looking exactly almost like the first version, again the first 6-inch Kong, and this one again is my favorite. Well, this sculpt, this type of figure is my favorite from the line because we have all that same articulation that we saw in the Skar King, and again the same articulation we had seen on the first release of this. You've got all sorts of very, very smooth articulation for this figure. Same deal with the neck articulation. Doesn't move quite as nicely and easily as the Skar King. The only difference between this one and the Skar King is the Skar King has some nice midsection articulation, and for some reason it looks like Kong should, but he doesn't, and if he does, it's incredibly stiff and doesn't move. But we do have the same type of articulation moving down into the legs again, with the leg articulation in the knee and hip, and it can swivel. It's a little stiff right now because, again, it's straight out of the packaging. But this version of Kong isn't too different from the other one, but it is a pretty fun, different paint variant, I can say that. And then we yet again have another HEAV, but this HEAV looks like it is the exact same HEAV that came with the Kong figure last time. I don't notice any difference in it when it comes to the sculpt or paint, especially because there isn't really much when it comes to the paint apps on these. But you can see it's a pretty cool addition to this set. So let's go ahead and break out those cardboard set pieces and we'll check those out. So we've got these pieces put together and you can see they look okay. They don't look terrible. Again, when it comes to cardboard set pieces, they're about as much fun, I think, as you're going to find for something like this. And again, you can see that the lava-like areas also look pretty cool. One thing, though, to keep in mind is be careful. I clearly ripped mine, so they are a little fragile, and I didn't think it would rip. I thought that they were durable enough that that wouldn't happen, but unfortunately, it did rip. But you can see kids will probably enjoy these. They could be fun for like a diorama or something like that. Obviously not anything super amazing or high quality. I also discovered that you can actually open up the belt or whatever you want to call this here that we have for our Skar King. So that's pretty cool as well. And then, of course, we've got our figures here. Now, I don't think we really need to do much in the way of measuring because we've already measured the Kong in the previous video, so I don't think we need to measure the Kong again. I guess we can measure the Skar King, just because we haven't yet. For a height, you're looking at just shy, I'd say about 5 3/4 inches or around 14.5 centimeters. So not quite at the 6-inch mark, even though they are labeled as 6-inch figures. But I think maybe if you really stood them up tall, they might get close to 6 inches. I'm not entirely sure. But we will do a comparison at the very least. So there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect a Human Being next to our Kong versus Skar King set, and you can see these figures are not massive, but they're honestly very nicely sized, and I think overall they're more conveniently sized than some of the others. But for another comparison, here we have the Battle Roar Skar King, which you can see is quite a bit larger than our, in quotation marks, 6-inch version. And then you also have the more mainline version of Kong, which does show you that those two figures, sculpt-wise, are exactly the same. The only difference would be the paint apps, again, just being a little bit flashier on the figure from this set. But obviously, if the other Skar King were here, the more 6-inch version, I would think that that would probably be the exact same figure again over there next to our Skar King. But instead we have the Battle Roar version, which, as I said, is obviously a bit larger. So this Walmart exclusive Kong vs. Skar King diorama set is kind of cool. I think it's cool because you do get two really quite nice figures for a decent price. I believe this retails for like $18.95, and normally they're about $10 for like the Kong and Skar King individually. So you do get a little bit off as far as that goes, like $1 off or so. And on top of that, you also get a different painted version, so a little bit of a different paint variant here for each of them, which is pretty cool. I would honestly say I think I like this Skar King the most so far. I think the Skar King looks really cool. The sculpt is fantastic when it comes to the fine detail, and the articulation is the best that I've seen in this line as a whole. I don't think any figure so far that I've seen, or any figure potentially that I will see in this line, will compete with that Skar King when it comes to the articulation and how nicely it works. And it's also pretty fun to be able to remove the belt that he wears, or whatever you want to call that goes over his shoulder. It's pretty cool to be able to pop that open and remove it from this one. And then again, Kong is also a beautiful figure. It's actually my favorite Playmates Kong to release so far. Not specifically this version, but that sculpt is the best one. You know, it outdoes every single Kong that we got from the first Godzilla vs. Kong movie. And honestly, I think that it's probably the best that Kong has looked when it comes to screen accuracy from the Playmates brand. And the paint job on this one, again, is the only difference between this and the original release. It's not really the greatest paint job in the world. It's an interesting looking one, but it's okay, I guess, for what it is. I don't know if there's something that might tie into that very interesting paint job in the movie, which may make me like it a little bit more when I do see that, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. It's an interesting paint job, but the Kong figure itself is really quite stellar, if you ask me. And then, of course, you have the HEAV, which is pretty fun. Nothing amazing, but it's a fun little extra that you get to include, especially when it comes to a playability standpoint. I can see kids definitely enjoying that. And, of course, for diorama potential, you also can use that. But you also have the diorama itself, again, with the set pieces, again, the cardboard set pieces. They're not anything that you're going to go crazy over. They're definitely not anything that's going to win any awards, but they are kind of fun to include. I could definitely see kids enjoying them. They could be pretty cool, again, for some images if you want to take some photography and stuff with these figures. I feel like they could be pretty fun to include in the background if used correctly. But overall, the set is kind of fun, honestly. I actually quite enjoy it. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase it on walmart.com. The set is a little tricky to get a hold of because it's often out of stock, but it seems to like pop back into stock almost every night for some reason for a little bit, and then I guess the scalpers probably grab them all. But again, I will include that link. Make sure you check that. Maybe turn on in-stock notifications if it's not in stock currently. And, of course, grab it once it is. And like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.